All right, it has been pretty much 4 years since I bought this 2021 Jet Black Mica Mazda 3 Turbo hatchback. I've put about 62,000 kilometers on this particular car, which is about 38,000 miles. And honestly, it's been a great experience. I love the way this car looks on the outside. I love the interior design. This is a really cool space to be, especially at this price point. But with every car, there are a few things that could be revised. So we'll go over that. And hopefully this helps you if you're looking at buying a used Mazda 3 Turbo or just a Mazda 3 in general, or even looking at buying a new one, because the car hasn't really changed that much over the last 4 years. So you probably can't see much of the car at the moment because there's just so much snow on it. We've been getting a ton of snow here in southwestern Ontario, Canada. Anyways, we will go to a car wash and get it washed up. But in the meantime, this does have the iActive all-wheel drive system, which means when the car detects slippage, it'll send 50% of all the power to the rear wheels, which means you can do fun stuff like this. Pretty cool. You can get the back end to come out a bit on this Mazda 3. So this is a pretty fun car in the winter. It just plows through the snow. It's got a really good all-wheel drive system. It's gotten me out of a lot of tricky situations. Actually saved my life one time. I almost got rammed by a car and I was able to floor it fast enough to avoid the car. If I'd been in my front-wheel drive Ford Focus, I don't know what would have happened. So as you saw in the intro, I was doing some donuts with this car. I wouldn't recommend doing that on the regular or for an extended period of time. It will heat up your rear differential and that's not super great for it. I've never had any issues, but I have read online and in forums of people ruining their rear diff from doing donuts for way too long a period of time. So this car does not have a limited slip differential. It has an open differential and that is more prone to overheating. But when there's a ton of snow like today, it is quite fun, just don't overdo it. So if you're unfamiliar with the engine under the hood in the Mazda 3 Turbo, it is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder turbo, and it makes 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque when you're running it on 93 octane, which is about 98 in Europe, I believe. Our numbers are a little bit different. However, if you're running it on just regular fuel, you get 227 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. Now, I run this car on 91 octane for the most part because you can't always get 93 everywhere. But there is still performance improvements when you put in, say, 89 or 91 octane. It's incremental change. Mazda's not super clear about how all this works, but from what I understand and from the forums I go on, you do still get a power boost putting in 89 or 91 octane. So back in the summer, I actually did a 0 to 60 time, and I was able to get about 5.5 seconds to 60 miles per hour with this car, which is pretty quick. .58. Nice. So power delivery is pretty good in this car. It's a smooth experience. more like a luxurious power delivery, I would call it. Now that is very different from, say, a dual clutch transmission in a Volkswagen Golf R or a Volkswagen Golf GTI. Those cars are definitely more snappy and much more aggressive. I do use the paddle shifters a little bit, but I wouldn't say the paddle shifters are overly exciting to use. This car is more aimed at kind of the luxury segment, premium segment. The 6-speed transmission is really smooth. And I do actually like the way it sounds in here. I know it's kind of fake and enhanced, but it sounds pretty natural. I've been in a CX-50 turbo, and that sounded a little over the top. They did a good job in this car of making it sound natural. When it comes to fuel economy, I'm getting about 9.3 liters per 100 kilometers right now. Usually it's around 9 in the summer, but in the winter here, you're kind of trying to chug through the snow a lot, so you're not being as efficient. And if you watched other reviews online, you'll know that people love how this car handles. It has G-vectoring, so it does help it from understeering. The steering does just feel quite tight. It feels pretty precise. So one downside to this car is that it has a torsion beam, and you're gonna hear this in every single review as well on the Mazda 3. I've watched like every Mazda 3 review possible on YouTube. And the torsion beam, yes, it does feel a little stiff on bumpy roads, and I actually really notice it when I get in and out of my wife and I's Ford Focus. It has independent rear suspension. That definitely takes the bumps a lot better. You do notice a little bit of stiffness in this car, but it kind of makes up for it with how sporty it feels. All right, here we are at the car wash, and there is nobody else here because why would you be washing your car on a day like today? Let's back in here. One thing, I love the 360 camera on this car. It works really, really well. And it's just like super clear. It's really good at night too. All right, let's just do a quick spray because it's just gonna be dirty quickly again. Alright, so here we are back where we started the video, and the car's looking a little bit cleaner. I mean, it's as clean as it's gonna get in the winter here. And I just wanna say, this is also my very first review on YouTube, like on this personal channel. I have a few reviews on another channel called Accelerate that I used to be a part of, but I was mostly behind the camera, so I'm not really used to being in front of the camera that much. This is a bit of a weird experience for me. Anyways, hopefully it's not a weird experience for you. So I bought this car back in March of 2021, and it cost about $35,000 Canadian. I think if you want the exact same spec now, it's about $42,000 Canadian and about $38,000 in the US. This would be the Premium Plus trim in the US. I know in the US you guys get the spoiler and the front lip on your Premium Plus trim, which is sweet, but we don't get that here. You have to buy that as kind of an additional accessory. Now, the big reason I bought a hatchback is because I run a video marketing company and I just need all the extra trunk space to throw all my camera gear in there. And with a sedan, it's just not as easy. I also just kind of prefer how the hatchback looks. I know some people think it looks like an egg, but I think it looks pretty good. Now, I will say it does look a lot better when you have that spoiler up there. I'm still kind of debating on getting it, but at this point, I'm probably not. Now, I really haven't done any modifications to this car other than paint the brakes red, which we know gives it an extra 100 horsepower. Just kidding, obviously. I have added these Vredestein Hypertrack tires, 225/45, so they're slightly bigger than the tires that the car comes with. The car comes with Bridgestone Turanzas, and I just never found those tires to be super great. These are definitely more grippy in wet conditions, and I just think the car needs bigger tires. I probably could have gone 235s, to be honest. Now, they didn't do a whole lot to differentiate this between the other Mazda 3 trims, other than you get bigger exhaust tips and then you get this turbo badge. And then you also get the garnet red leather interior as an option. But otherwise, there's not a whole lot that they did to make this look different from other Mazda trims or Mazda 3 trims. I really think the aero kit should have been a standard thing. One other thing that kind of bothers me, I mean, it's not a big deal, but I do wish you could drive around with the daytime running lights like this. Here in Canada, we can't. Actually, as soon as I start driving, the lights will come on. The headlights will come on. So even during the day, you still have to drive with basically the full headlights on. There is no way to kind of override this in Canada. I know in the US you can get around it, but yeah, I just think it looks so cool when the lights are like that. All right, so if we want to talk about some things that have gone wrong, well, I had a squirrel build a nest inside my engine bay here, and he also went down in there, ate some wires, and it ended up costing about $400 to fix it. And then it's kind of just a maintenance thing, but I did replace the battery at 57,000 kilometers. Basically what happened was I drained the battery by leaving the daytime running lights on because I had been taking pictures of it. And then the battery was just never the same after that. And it's been such a cold winter that it really struggled, and I just replaced it. Now, while I was out there filming, I completely forgot to talk about this. I had the front brake pads and rotors replaced at about 50,000 kilometers. I started feeling feedback in the steering wheel when braking at about 47,000 kilometers or so. Seems kind of early on to have your brakes replaced, but it is what it is. And it cost about $900 or so to have those fixed with labor. So this brings me to another thing about the Mazda 3 Turbo that I wish it had. I wish it had better brakes. I do wish they would have differentiated from the other trims that way and given it better brakes. It just has the exact same brakes that all the other Mazda 3s have. They're all right. You really got to push into them to make the car stop. Whereas if you're used to a car with grabby brakes, you'll definitely notice it on this car. Once you get used to it, it's fine. It's just when you do that like swap, like when I get out of the Focus and I go into the Mazda 3, there's a huge difference in how they brake. Other maintenance stuff, oil changes. It usually costs around $110 to $120 Canadian to get your oil changed. But other than that, there aren't really any other expenses that I've had with this vehicle. Now, speaking about oil changes, this is where one of the biggest concerns for this car lies, and it's in this oil consumption issue that seems to affect a lot of the turbos from 2021, or not a lot, but it seems to be an issue that some people are having. I've actually experienced it 2 or 3 times, and basically what happens is your oil level goes really low way before you need an oil change. There seems to be something wrong with the car that it consumes oil real fast. I've had it happen about 2 or 3 times. Basically what's happened, I just top it up with oil and it seems to be fine. I have asked the dealership about this issue, and there is a technical service bulletin for it. It's just they can't really do anything about it until you use their oil or get your oil changed at a Mazda dealership. I know. Anyways, the last time I got my oil changed, I did it there. So if this happens again, they will take a look at it and hopefully fix it. And if you're wondering how often I get my oil changed, around 8,000 kilometers, I would say, 4,900 miles. I don't usually let it go any farther than that. Especially with these cold winters, it's just a good idea to regularly get your oil changed. So the second issue I have with this car, it's not a huge deal, but it is this droning noise it makes on the highway at around 118, 120 kilometers an hour. It's kind of like a high-pitched noise. I'll let you listen. Now, it's not a huge deal because I'm not on the highway all the time, and actually nobody else really seems to notice it except me when I'm driving. I've had to point it out, and then people go, oh yeah, I do hear that. So it's not like a major problem. You can just turn the music up and you won't hear it. But I was always kind of curious what's making that noise. So I took it to the dealership. They recognized that they could hear it, and they actually replaced my rear differential because they thought that might have been it. But turns out it wasn't because it's still making a noise, but I got a brand new rear diff. I also did just recently replace this rear wiper. So I love this interior space. I love this garnet red. I like that it's kind of a subtle color. It's not like a bright tacky red like some cars. It's got the Bose audio sound system. It sounds really good. It's very bassy. And it was kind of designed for this car, so that's probably why it sounds pretty good. The tactile buttons, love that we have actual buttons for HVAC controls and for the heated seats and the heated steering wheel. Heated seats get really warm, steering wheel gets decently warm, mostly in this area right here. The seats are firm and can be a little bit tiring after a really long road trip, but they do look cool. It's personal preference. It does have lumbar support, which is nice. In the driver's side, my steering wheel is kind of peeling or flaking, which is kind of interesting. but it's not too noticeable, so it's not that big of a deal. The piano black, obviously everybody complains about that. Yes, it looked bad after basically the first month of ownership, but it is what it is. A lot of car companies are going in this direction or have been going in this direction. Now when it comes to the screen, yes, it doesn't have a touch screen in this 2021. The new 2025s and 2024s do have touch for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is really nice. Now this 2021 also didn't have wireless Android Auto or wireless Apple CarPlay, but as you can see, I don't have a wire connected to my phone. I just bought one of these little adapters on Amazon. They're pretty cheap and it works really good. As you can see, it doesn't lag much at all. And I've been pretty happy with this. Other things people bring up is creaking. I haven't really noticed much creaking in this car other than the driver's side window, but it seems to have resolved itself. It doesn't really do it much anymore, which is nice. Really, those are the only negatives I can really find with this interior space. I really like this car.
Now, a lot of people get concerned about the blind spots in the hatchback because of the way it's designed, and it's definitely there. At certain intersections, it can be kind of an issue, but for the most part, the blind spot monitoring system works really well, and yeah, I don't find it to be too much of an issue.
Other nice things are how quiet these wipers are. Okay, what? They're usually so quiet. What's going on? Pretty nice.
So I shot that a couple weeks ago, back when it was rainy and not snowy. And as you can tell, it doesn't sound much better than your neighbor's lawnmower. I mean, it doesn't sound terrible, but it's not like a Civic Si. It's not like a Golf GTI or an Elantra N or a Civic Type R. It's definitely very subdued. And again, that's just kind of the way they went with this car. It's not a hot hatch.
Why didn't I buy something like a Volkswagen Golf R or a Volkswagen GTI? Well, the Volkswagen Golf R was way out of budget when I was looking at this car. It's like $60,000 Canadian now, and that just seems like too much for a little car. But the GTI was up next. I kind of wanted all-wheel drive, so I went with this. The GTI is obviously probably a much more fun car to drive around, but I don't really love the touch, like the haptic touch buttons that they have right now. I really just love how this car looks, and that was a big drawing point for me.
One other thing I really love about this car are the headlights. They are so bright at night. It just like lights up the entire road and surrounding area. Makes you feel really safe driving out on dark country roads. Now, sometimes the oncoming traffic will high beam you because they think you have your high beams on because the lights are that bright. So that can be annoying for those people, but for you, the driver, they're great. They are also adaptive headlights, so they do turn when you're turning your steering wheel. So that's the end of this video. I really appreciate you guys making it to the end. Thanks so much. You guys have great attention spans. And I do appreciate you watching my very first YouTube review here on my new YouTube channel. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe if you'd like. If you have any questions about Mazda 3s or Mazda 3 turbos in general, feel free to shoot them in the comments below. I'll try to answer them if I know the answer. And yeah, more cars coming. We've got quite a few booked, so I'm pretty excited for what's ahead. See you soon.